getting ready for Josh Groban's Find Your Light Gala, where I will be speaking and presenting some young artists on the stage. And I'll be answering some of your questions. Music was really like inspiration for me, just to move my body and to start dancing. My mom played like a lot of R&B and soul and hip hop around the house, and I wanted to move. And then it started to get more like specific, like certain singers were really inspirational for me, and like I connected with like the lyrics to their songs, and then I started choreographing. And Mariah Carey was like the one. She was the one. She became like this symbol of representation for me. I didn't realize it at the moment, but I was just so drawn to her, and also just this biracial woman, and you know, I was this young biracial girl, and not until I was older did I really understand the power of representation. That's when I started the drill team when I was 13, and then from there I was introduced to ballet. And I think music is still very much like at the core of where my creativity and artistry like stems from when I do dance. So I was a teenager when I started ballet. I was 13, which, you know, so many people are like, oh, it's so late, it's such a late age. I feel like it's a really nice age to start. It's really about finding a studio, a dance studio, and finding teachers that understand you and your body and what your needs and your aspirations are. You know, I think so much is possible, especially when you're at a point in your life where you understand that this is something you really want to do, then you really do put in the effort. I think sometimes when you're younger and you kind of fall into an activity or you know, a sport or an art because your parent puts you in it, you know, it can be harder to stay engaged if it's not something that you choose. And so I think being a teen, you have more agency over yourself, and so I think that's a plus with starting in your teens. But just be consistent and have fun and enjoy the journey. So let's see, how old am I? I'm 42. And the first time I performed Firebird, I was 29 years old. It was the first principal role I ever danced, and it was also very traumatizing. I had the most severe injury of my career. I ended up with 6 stress fractures and ended up having surgery, having a plate screwed into my tibia, and I was out for a year. I didn't think I would ever do the role again. I actually ended up doing it, I think, 5 years later. And I don't know how I did it. It's a lot of jumping. It is one of the most physical roles I've ever danced, like in the classical repertory. So I would not be doing that again. I don't think I could physically ever do Firebird again. But of course, I would love to coach or set it on another dancer, you know, or a company, to keep that role alive. It's so meaningful to me in my career, and as a Black woman, being the first to dance that role at American Ballet Theater. So absolutely. One of my favorite quotes, and I don't know if these were her words, but she said to me, she's now the artistic director of American Ballet Theater, but at the time she was a ballet mistress, so she was coaching me. She was also a friend and mentor, Susan Jaffe. And I was just having a really difficult time, you know, kind of juggling what it is to be on stage and be a performer and have the spotlight on you, and just so many, you know, critical eyes, and you know, especially with social media. And she would say to me, you have the power to not let other people's words define you. And it's something that has always stuck with me. I'm like, you're right. No, Cheez-Its are not my favorite snack anymore. I go through my phases. I'd say the one constant snack that has like remained in my life since childhood are sunflower seeds. Like in the shell, salted. I love them. I'm like a pro. It's not as traditional, I think, to go to college and then go on to a professional career. Just for those people that don't really know the ballet industry, you typically would go from high school, from the ages of 16 to 19. I would say that it's just important to be consistent in keeping up your training and your strength while you're in school. And then really just put yourself out there. Don't limit yourself and really test the waters. And there's so many companies in the world, so I think there's a lot of opportunity. I love Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. It's so visual. It's set in Italy, and it kind of goes back and forth with these different timelines in old Hollywood, and it makes you feel like you're there in this beautiful atmosphere with the food, and yeah, it's one of my faves. I actually need to read it again. It's been a while. It is difficult having a child, a whole human being to take care of. I think when you have a strong support system, like, it's possible to make these things happen. And of course there's going to be things that you sacrifice. I haven't been on the stage in 4 or 5 years, so I'm getting back into cross training and things like that to be back on stage soon. And yeah, some days, like, I can't write. I'm working on 2 books right now, but some days I have to sacrifice, like, I'm not writing today because the focus is going to be on my training and my son. And I'm very involved, and I want to drop him off at school and pick him up if I can and be with him as much as possible. So you make sacrifices, and sometimes things just take longer to get done. Throughout my career, I've had injuries, and I've never really stepped away from training, even with those injuries, because there are other things that you can be doing. You know, when I had my shin injury and I couldn't walk, I was still doing like floor bar exercises and things like that, where I was working on still engaging in my other muscles in my arms and things like that. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I really haven't done much. I mean, which I never imagined I would say or do. But I've really kind of like let my body just like rest and heal. But it's so important to keep moving, even if it's minimal. So I would say if you have taken time off from dance, whether it be 6 months, a year, a couple of years, that it's so important to ease back in. I know your mind may think it remembers exactly what it should do and how it should feel, but your muscles are just not in the same place that they once were. And so for me, at this point, I've really started with doing some private training, and then I'm doing some floor bar work. So I really want to get my form kind of back where it needs to be and strong and stable before I even just stand up and do a traditional ballet bar. So just be patient and take things in steps. I don't believe in like good or bad performances. Like, it's, especially when you're in a ballet company and you're doing like a full-length ballet or even just a piece, like there's a journey and there may be something that goes wrong. And one of my favorite things about live performances is how you recover. And that's what really makes you a professional, because you have to adjust in the moment. I mean, I've had moments where I was on stage and I've been exhausted and jet lagged and forgotten choreography. And just, and you snap back into it, your muscle memory kicks in, and then you pick up. And it's almost like motivation for me to like do better, because I'm like, okay, now I have something to prove. The first time I performed Firebird at Lincoln Center at the Metropolitan Opera House, and to see a change in the demographic who was coming to see me perform, to see a house full of black and brown kids and young people, and that to me, it was like, I don't need to do another show. Like that was so fulfilling, to be able to see people who want to be a part of something because they see themselves represented. There have been a lot of them, actually. I would say there was a moment when I was dancing as a guest artist with La Scala at La Scala Ballet in Milan, in Italy, and we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and it's one of my favorite roles, to be able to dive into a character and do something that's more dramatic and really storytelling. And it's not actually a ton of dancing, but really just about telling a story with your body and through pantomime. And Prince had recently passed away, and he was a close friend of mine, and we worked together for many years. And I feel like I hadn't really grieved. And I was in the midst of this live performance, and it was like it hit me in that moment, and I was like bawling my eyes out during the show, which was very appropriate for the part of that I was in that moment. But it was a very memorable moment that I can like still feel how I felt in that moment. It was like pretty cool. I've had that happen to me for a year. And it's really, sometimes you just have to like put one foot in front of the other and just kind of like keep the momentum going. But also just, it's so important to have a support system around you and people that you can turn to and really be transparent and open and candid about the things you're going through, so you can really process them and figure out like what's going on inside that's deeper than what's just on the surface. During that time, that year that I was really struggling in my work, I found a new teacher and a different kind of lens to look through and see like how I was approaching my training and to make it work for me and where I was at that point. I love to sit in the theater and not be on stage and watch a performance. I'm not one of those people that's like dancing in my seat. I'm just simply enjoying the talent on the stage. I think that the moments when I am kind of more looking at the dancers is maybe when I'm watching the corps de ballet. And I think because it's one of the hardest things I've ever done as a dancer is be in the corps de ballet, which is the large group, the large body of dancers that really set the atmosphere. Something I've had to learn to do since I've kind of stepped back from the stage is to just, be able to like see it as a whole and as the environment rather than looking at each individual dancer. That's allowed me to appreciate what the corps de ballet I think is there for. I'm always working on something. There's so much happening between the production company, Life in Motion Productions. We have a lot of film and television projects that are in development, which is really exciting, but I can't really say much about them. But something I'm really excited about that I'm working on now are 2 new books that will be out next year. It's a follow-up to the series of my children's books, Bunheads.